This is one of the keystones in my 50-state journey, and one of the places that how I got connected to Mark and Brian and everything. Marie, where are we going?
Okay, we're going to go to Sacred Stone Camp first. That was the very first camp. LaDonna Allard opened that April 1st, 2016 on her own land that she and her family owned. And that was the only camp for a couple of months, and then it just got so crowded. She said she had no idea how many people would show up. She expected just a handful of people, and I think the first week she had about 40 people staying there. People put up teepees, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then the Rosebud Reservation sent out some people to start a second camp, also on the reservation here. And that was called, fittingly enough, Rosebud Camp. And that's on a thin strip of land right along the Cannonball River.
Now, there are so many just causes or fights or, active movements. What do you think made this one, to get so publicity, such publicity, and get so popular and bringing people from all over the world, not just the country?
Well, that's when I first came out here, and I stayed for 1 week the first visit. That's what I wanted to find out. I'd been following water issues for many years, and I was really very upset that none of them seemed to get much attention. People didn't seem upset when there'd be oil contamination on some of the major rivers in the U.S. And all of a sudden this had a lot of publicity, a lot of traction, and I followed it all summer online. And I kept thinking, you've got to go out there to see what it is about this issue, that it's making people sit up, it's making people wake up. And what was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back was watching the youth in their run from Cannonball to Washington. I saw that and I thought, damn, this is really important. I have to go check this out. And I think it's a number of things. First of all, I'd been working on political issues, different ones, prior to this, and it may sound silly, but we were never able to find the essence of these different issues in a way that made sense to people and didn't bore them. I was working trying to get the influence of big money out of government, and it's always been very difficult to talk about it. Well, the great thing about the Standing Rock thing is, water is life. Minnie Machoni. It says it all. It's not trite. It's something anybody can understand. It applies to all walks of life. And to me, it speaks the importance of the issue. So, first of all, just you're able to encapsulate it and talk about it in a way that's meaningful, that speaks to the modern age that wants everything in sound bites. So there's that. There is the threat of pollution, the threat of global warming, which this addresses. There is the fact that it addresses the corporatization of this country, the fact that fossil fuels own the government now. They write the laws. They can get the police out there protecting their projects, saying it's a national security issue, when in fact it's for their own profit. And nobody seems to bat an eye at that. So it brings in that issue. It brings in, and this is one that probably does not appeal as broadly, but the whole idea of native rights and the fact that the government has reneged on every single treaty it made with any of are so much tied to the land and understand the importance and our relationship to it in a way that we have totally forgotten, that makes them the rightful leaders in this movement. I think that it really, in many ways, has to be the natives that lead this movement, and that those of us who are not natives should embrace our position as allies and followers. But for me, it's a very strong emotional thing, and it has so many ramifications, and I think that's the power of it, frankly.
Now, for a lot of us, and I'm talking about, just people reading on the news and watching TV and, open up the internet, we see Standing Rock, the name, and we kind of know what's happening, but could you give us a breakdown or an explanation from the beginning what really happened here?
Well, you have to start before something happened here, and that's that the state of North Dakota has become a state whose economy is very much dependent on fossil fuels. There's something called the Bakken, B-A-K-K-A-N, formation or reserves of oil, and that's in the northwestern part of the state. And 20, 30, 40 years ago, I don't know, a while ago, it would have been impossible to get at the oil there because of the kind of oil. So it's a fairly recent thing that we've really been able to access it. And like the tar sands oil in Canada, it's very dirty oil. It takes a lot to process it, a lot to, first of all, just get it out of the ground, then to process it, to move it on. And it's been decided that the most efficient way to transport it is not by trucks or trains or above the ground means, but to build pipelines. And this country is riddled with pipelines. We've had pipelines for, 40 years. So this is not a new thing, but it was a very long pipeline that starts at the source, the Bakken oil fields in northwestern North Dakota. It goes diagonally through the state, and originally the plan was to have it go to cross the Missouri River north of the city of Bismarck, which is about 60 miles north of the Standing Rock reservation. And Bismarck is the capital. It's the second largest city in North Dakota. And when the citizens of that city got wind of the fact that they were planning to build the pipeline and have it cross the Missouri River north or upstream of their water supply, they got very upset. They said, "Oh, no. What happens when the pipes burst? You're going to contaminate our water." And they said, "Okay, you're right. We'll find a new path for it. We'll have it cross the Missouri River south of you all, so you don't have to worry about that." And so it's literally, a half mile or a mile north of the intake pipes for the reservation, which means that, when there's a break, it's going to, if it's in the right place, it's going to affect the water supply of the tribe, but not the city of Bismarck. And what's interesting is that the tribe became very upset about this, and they said, no, you can't do that there. There's a whole process here. You have to consult with us. You haven't consulted with us. And all of a sudden, the pipeline people we're not admitting that, oh yeah, you're right, when it breaks it's going to contaminate your water. It's like, oh no, it's not going to break. This is just the most modern, most efficient, most wonderfully designed pipeline. It's never going to break. Well, all pipelines break. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the pipeline people just started lying. They claimed that, oh yes, well, we contacted people and the tribe, and nobody responded to us. Nobody wanted to talk to us. We really tried, but nobody wanted to talk to us. So we just assumed that, you know, they were in favor of this. And so they essentially just pushed the project through. They also did, they got away with not having something that's mandated by law, which is an environmental impact statement. And the way they did that is they followed an expedited schedule in which they broke down the pipeline, which is roughly 1,200 miles long. They broke it down into a lot of small segments. My understanding is that if a project is small enough, you don't need to have an environmental impact statement. So instead of looking at the pipeline as one big project, they looked at it as, you know, 500 little projects, all of which were too small to require an environmental impact statement.
Bypassing the law.
Say again?
Bypassing the law by that.
Bypassing the law, legally, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, by a certain standard, what they did was legal. But of course it was all legalese and chicanery. So, anyway, finally, LaDonna was somebody who'd been following these pipeline discussions since 2014. And when it became clear that they were going to build, when she saw people out prospecting on the land, she just decided, you know, fuck this. I'm not going to put up with this. I'm going to set up a camp on my land, and we're going to have a prayer camp. And the point of this prayer camp is to bring people to pray and try to fight this pipeline.
Now we're talking about the summer of 2014.
This is now the summer of 2016.
Summer 2016, okay.
And the camp that she started is the one that I'm going to show you, the land where it was. And she called it Sacred Stone. There are supposedly some sacred stones on the reservation. I haven't seen them. They apparently are in a secret place on the reservation. But it was in reference to that she named her camp. And as I say, the camp got bigger and bigger, and then Rosebud started a camp, and then there was the overflow camp that became Ochetti, which became the largest camp, or some people refer to it as main camp. And then people were going to pray at construction sites, and over the summer there'd be instances where people would stand in front of construction equipment so that the construction workers could not work, and so the workers would go home for the day, and this was considered a victory that they were able to stop construction. And this continued throughout the summer, and finally the police started stepping things up, and in in August 2016, at some of these prayer actions, they started arresting people.
So that's when things started to escalate.
That's when things started to escalate. And the real thing that I think really captured people's imaginations in a bad way was actually the day before I arrived in camp. It was September 3rd, when private security, not the police, but private security brought dogs. And the dogs actually ended up biting people. And it was documented. It was very lucky, but there was a woman named Amy Goodman, who was a noted journalist for a group called Democracy Now! And she was there reporting on it, and she shows the attacks. She shows you the attack dogs with bloody mouths. I'm taking you to, we are now on kind of what was Sacred Stone. As you can see, this is the Cannonball River. The water levels are extremely high, and you can see how there's been flooding down below with all those trees that are in water. And then over there is the Missouri River. So this is where the Cannonball River flows into the Missouri River. And this is a statue that was put up in 2016, and it's entitled Not Afraid to Look. And it's based on a kind of artwork that the natives used to put on their pipes, their chanupas. This is private land. You have permission to be here, so
So here was the camp, right here?
it was really down below. I mean, there were winter tents. There was a yurt, a Mongolian yurt over here in the winter. The main way to go in, I turned off on a side road, but the main road would go down like that, and then it drops sharply. And most of the camp was down there on the floodplain.
So for how long, eventually, like the camp was here?
Almost
Like,
a year. It was here from April 1st when it opened, and it was the Bureau of Indian Affairs Police did the final evacuation March 1st of the following year. So it was 11 months that Sacred
people
Stone was open.
was here,
Camping here, yeah.
camping here, for testing.
They had a school. I mean, all of them. We had schools in all of the major camps. We had medical facilities, and it ranged from doctors and nurses to naturopaths to traditional healers to herbal remedies. I mean, it was
A full operation.
and it was all free. You just go in there and you'd see a doctor, and he or she would say, yes, you know, they could prescribe you antibiotics if they felt you needed it, or they say, no, that's just a sinus infection, go over there. They can give you a steam bath, you know, to kind of open up your nasal passages, whatever. I used them for that. I had a sinus infection, and I got wonderful treatment. I had a friend who had an eye infection. I took him there, and he got wonderful treatment. It was all free. It was all people who were medical professionals. They might only come for 2 weeks. They might come for several months. But that's just the way they come.
Now we're right now in North Dakota, and it's probably now in the mid-90s. It's nice, and you know it's
I'd say it's
warm.
probably in the 80s.
In the 80s, maybe now that the sun is going down.
Right.
But we're talking about 11 months during which we have January and February, and the temperature here drops to.
I've been here when it's been down to 30 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit.
So in Celsius, that's like minus 25, something around this number,
Sounds
just
about
for
right.
people to understand how cold it gets in North Dakota and where we are right now.
And in the other end, how hot in the summer.
But the saving grace for the heat is that the nights do cool off, which is really nice.
And during the winter, how did people cope?
Wore a lot of clothing. Most people did not live in tents, moved to things like yurts or had teepees and their tents kind of fortified. And
There were also campers, like
there were
RVs.
campers. There were campers. Some people built structures, wooden structures. We had a lot of wood-burning stoves. I actually lived in a huge yurt. It was 24 feet in diameter. It had been donated to us by the Unitarian Universalist Church, and we had a wonderful wood chip burning stove inside, where you could fill up the case at the top at night and not have to get up in the middle of the night to feed the fire like you would with a regular fire. And you'd wake up in the
when we're thinking about the physical or the more violent clashes starting around October, what happened during the winter months?
In terms of the confrontation?
Yeah.
That we still had confrontations. And the major, I wasn't actually present at the first large mass arrest, and it was the one time I was arrested. They arrested close to 140 people, and we were on a prayer walk. Prior to that, the arrests had been, in the double digits at most. And when they arrested us on that one day, it probably doubled the number of arrests to date. Then that was on the 22nd of October. There were some arrests on the 10th. Then on the 27th was the largest arrest date. Over 140 people were arrested. I'll show you the several places where things went on. But that's where all 7 of our federal cases have come from. We have 7 people who have been charged federally.
Shocking scenes that I remember. Do you recall some of those?
I was not there, but that was November 20th, and it was at the bridge. We'll pass over it, called Backwater Bridge. And we had several injuries then. We had a woman who has basically affected the lowest parts of her eyes. She got shot in the eye by a rubber bullet. There was another woman, Sophia, who got the lower part of her left arm away. She's now getting it reconstructed surgeries. And they are both engaged in their own litigation against law enforcement. But it was horrible. It was about 20 degrees. It was below freezing. And law enforcement used water cannon, and people feel that there was something mixed in with the water, because a lot of people have come up with rashes on their skin that got exposed to the water.
Something chemical.
Yeah, we don't know yet. It was an awful night. It was, I think, more than 100 people were treated for injuries and hypothermia. There's a lot of hypothermia. That's probably, that and the dog bite incident are probably the 2 most infamous things that went on. And then there were others, and then probably the last big one, mass arrest, was on February 1st. It's called Last Child. And I'll show you. It's a hill right across the highway from Ocheri-Chacoin camp, where people went up with teepees early in the morning, set up teepees on the land, and then the law enforcement came. And you look at the photographs, and it really looks like it's warfare, the way the law enforcement treated them. Resulted in 76 arrests. The people were all very peaceful. They were in prayer on top of the hill, but they were charged, and most of those trials are over now.
So we'll continue this conversation. I want to take a few moments to show, pay some tribute. We're right now in Standing Rock, 2018, 2 years after after the protest has begun? What has happened since, basically?
Well, the camps were all closed. They were shut down by the police in different ways, different cops, because you had different jurisdictions. You had the main camp, which was not on the reservation, but was on, it's very complicated. It's what's called unceded territory. So theoretically, it belongs to the natives. They've never given up their possession of it, even though it's not part of the reservation. But the Army Corps of Engineers maintains, I don't know what you call it, jurisdiction over the land because it's in the floodplain of an area of a major river that's been dammed. So they have jurisdiction of it over it. So it's considered federal land. So anyway, the camps were cleared. People went home, and then basically the trials have, began then. And there were 838 state cases. Now, case does not mean one person, one case. I was charged with 2 charges, and then I was recharged the second time. So I represent 2 cases, okay? Red Fawn was arrested 3 different times, so she represents 3 cases. So roughly 700 people were arrested, representing 838 cases. In others cases, we've been working really hard on them. I think we've exhausted the state attorney general, and we're down now to about roughly 15 scheduled trials. We have about 85 people who have arrest warrants, and we're currently trying to get in touch with them and see if we can resolve their cases. We're doing that bit by bit.
And the project?
And the project? What do you mean?
The pipeline project.
It was finished. It was finished in the spring, or the several months after the camps were closed, and oil started flowing through the pipeline in June of 2017. So oil has been flowing through the pipeline for over a year. There have been several leaks.
There has been leaks.
There have been leaks. They have not yet been in areas that have affected the Missouri River. But there is also a new law in North Dakota that says if a leak is below a certain amount of oil lost, it doesn't have to be reported, which is very convenient.
Yeah.
So our feeling is that there probably have been many more than just the, 6 to 8 that I know of. There could be a lot more. It's just that they're deemed small enough that they don't legally have to report them.
Now, would you summarize, even though we're not in a summarized position yet, but would you summarize the Standing Rock movement and camps and everything as a success or a failure? Because at the end of the day, they did get what they wanted, and they did get the oil to flow on the Missouri River as planned, south of Bismarck and closer to the native people of the Standing Rock Reservation. How do you and how do people here feel about it?
Well, if you look at it just as a one pipeline project, I guess you'd have to say it was a failure. But I take a much larger view, and I think it's been successful in that, I think it was, you hear it all the time, and it was stated today at that conference. They tried to stomp out the fire, and they ended up spreading the embers. both law enforcement and the fossil fuel industry have become very much, afraid's maybe not the right word, but very concerned about what's going on now. There are fights on other pipelines in other parts of the country, up in Canada even. There's a major pipeline in Pennsylvania. There's a pipeline, Line 3, that's in Minnesota. There's Pipeline 5 that's largely in Michigan. There's the Bayou Bridge pipeline built by the same people that built the the DAPL, Dakota Access Energy Transfer Partners. They're building a pipeline down in Louisiana, and there have been protests, there have been arrests. The legislature there has now made it a felony to protest any of these pipelines, even though protest, as long as it follows certain guidelines, is protected by the First Amendment, free speech. I mean, that shows you, I think, in a way, what a success it is, in just that everybody who has anything to do with the pipeline and the oil industry is terrified of what happened in Standing Rock, and they don't want to see it happen again. Now, we're almost about to leave the reservation, and on the right-hand side, just before this upcoming bridge, if you look in, along the river is where the Rosebud camp was. This was started by the Rosebud Reservation. I'm not going to go down, but it's this driveway that goes in here. It's really grown up now, pretty wild, but it's in there, okay? And now this is the Cannonball River that we saw from up high. This is the Cannonball Bridge. So we have now left the reservation, and over here where these cattle are, this is where Ochedi-Shekelin camp was.
Also known as the main camp?
Yes, this was the south gate. This big bump over here was Facebook Hill. I actually lived there for about 5 weeks. I'm going to pull off here what was called the North Gate, or Echo 1. And if you saw pictures of a road with lots of flags, tribal flags, it's this main road. It was referred to, some people called it Crazy Horse Boulevard. It was more commonly called Flag Road. It was beautiful. It was just incredible to see the flags flying here. You can see there's been a lot of flooding here too.
Yeah.
If you want to get out and go up to the gate, you can. That is public land. You're free to do it. And I don't know, there probably were, at the height, maybe 10,000 people living here. It was like, I don't know what the number is, but like the 10th largest settlement in North Dakota at one time, when it was its largest. And this is where I lived the entire time. I lived in different places. The first week I was here, I lived over there in the trees. Second time I was by the Cannonball River for about a week, and then I moved up to Facebook Hill. And then the last time I lived in a yurt that was at the foot of Facebook Hill. And then you see where the sun is setting, that hill that's kind of flat top, that's where the last child camp was, where they set up 7 teepees, had ceremony, and 76 people were arrested February 1st. It was the last big standoff. It was a very cold day. I was standing here on the highway for most of the time. Law enforcement, well, everybody entered through that gate, both the people who put the teepees on the top, and then later law enforcement all entered through that cattle gate. Interesting. Then then we'll drive up to the bridge. It's called Backwater Bridge, where that standoff with the water cannons happened. On October 27th, when hell just broke loose, and that's when Red Fawn was arrested and a lot of people were arrested. At the end of the day, law enforcement brought 2 huge military trucks, put them on the other side of this bridge, and they effectively became a barricade. And then there was razor wire that went across here. There were big concrete barricades. But this was the bridge. This is where the standoff was, where the young woman lost her eye, where another woman lost her lower arm. And that all happened here on this bridge. And then the last place I'll show you is about a mile from here. It's where it was called the front line. When I first arrived, it was sacred ground. It's where the pipeline ultimately went under the highway here. And the day after I was arrested, people started to build a second camp there, and it was called 1851 Treaty Camp. Other people called it Sacred Camp. And that only lasted 5 days. And then the cops came in, swept through, and made lots and lots of arrests.
Now, when you're arrested, like what they holding against you? Like how long they can keep you? Or what they asked you?
Well, when they arrested us on a Saturday, and as such, to get out of jail, well, if you wanted to pay a really high bond, you could do that and get out. But most of us didn't want to do that, so we had to wait for our what's called an arraignment, and we were arraigned, and we couldn't be arraigned until Monday, because Monday was the first working day that a judge could arraign us. So I ended up spending the weekend, spending 2 days in jail. But
which jail?
Well, they originally took all of us to Mandan, to Morton County Jail, but it has a maximum of like 90 beds, and there were 140 of us, and there were already people in jail. So they sent us out, and I was in the first batch of people who were sent out, and I went up to Fargo, which is like a 3.5-hour drive from here. Okay, so the pipeline actually goes in right where we are now, this driveway. And
underneath this?
It's underneath the road. If you want to get out, you can, or whatever. Oops. Apologize for the
So if you see the discoloration on this hill going from here all the way to the top, this is where the pipeline goes.
Right. So the pipeline came around here.
It goes down under the river and into the Missouri River.
It goes under. And what they did was the pipeline is in the ground under the river. Okay? And it does the same thing in the Mississippi River if you go farther south. It goes under the river. Which is problematic, because what happens if there's, the pipeline breaks there? They have to come down. They don't seem to have any kind of a rescue plan, or what happened in case what would have been the construction site here, and the camp. And so what they effectively did was they cut us off from the construction site, so we could no longer come and effectively stop construction. Because we didn't have access, which is exactly what they wanted.
So, first of all, I can't thank you enough for this guided tour and for taking us here. And this is one of the keystones in my 50-state journey, and one of the places that how I got connected to Mark and Brian and everything is by me being at a spiritual gathering in Vermont last summer.
Oh, really?
And I met a lady there, and she was here during the Standing Rock protest, and I learned from her a little bit more than I knew back then about the fight for clean water, which is a basic human right as I see it, and I think every reasonable person should. And once I got closer into this mountain sort of Midwest area, I texted her and I said I wanted to pay tribute to the Standing Rock Reservation and go and see for myself where everything happened. And so she told me, listen, I lost my phone, I lost all my contacts, but there's this event going on in South Dakota, and it's an Osiri event in Oglala, Dakota, permaculture event going on at the end of the month. And I said, okay, Danielle, and Danielle didn't know anything about this. I was like, okay, we're going to visit, and we're going to volunteer with the natives for a month. She was like, what, are you crazy? Who is this? How do you know where we're going? I said, this is what I feel that we should be doing. And so we got there, and it's almost 300 miles south of here, at the Pine Ridge Reservation, where we met, the amazing Mark and Brian, and they became family. And we didn't know, because we don't have all the funds, and this whole journey of mine is just this crazy spiritual journey that every step leads you into another one. So we didn't know even if we'll have a chance of visiting Standing Rock. And all of a sudden yesterday, these couple ladies came to the ranch, and they were going to be at the event at the end of the month at the ranch, and they said that they're going up to Standing Rock because there's this 2-day event. And we told Brian, okay, we have to go. And Brian said, listen, I've got this invitation for months, and I didn't know. I was dabbling with it, and I didn't know whether I'll go or not. But now that you're saying, okay, we're going, and then Mark said, okay, we're going. And so this is a very, very emotional, and I cherish you for taking us on this ride and showing us what you and the Dakota and Standing Rock Reservation and people from all over the world have been through for this cause. And for me personally, there's another layer on top of it. Right now in Israel, there's a huge protest against a drinking reel that is happening right off the shores of Israel. And it's the same story, the same narrative, just a different spot. Big companies, big money, lobbyists that are wanting to open up a drinking reel 10 kilometers off of the coast of Israel, instead of having it 120 kilometers into the ocean and into the sea as it should. And basically the condensate, which is a gas that is very explosive, is going to go down under the water into Israel, and they're not willing to discover where it would go under confidentiality and things like that. And if something happens, if there's going to be any pollution, any leaks, as happened here and as happened in every drilling and every oil pipeline ever, it's going to ruin the shores of Israel for a couple months in the good, in a good scenario, and for a couple of years in a bad one. So this is a matter that is super relevant and super interesting, I think, for all my viewers and for people from all over the world to understand the the unity and how this fabric of life, it's all connected and interconnected with everything. It's not that we're humans, we are above nature, we're part of it, and we sometimes, because of money and because of greed and because of ego and because of politics and so many other bullshits, we're forgetting that we're hurting each and every one of our lives. And it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, if you're right-wing or left-wing, if you're Muslim or Jewish, it doesn't matter. Like, this thing, it's water. It will affect everyone. So it was super important for me to come here today, and again, thank you so much for taking us and showing us around.
Well, I want to add to that too, that I think everybody who's either at camp or who's at my office is there because we don't always know why, except that we feel called to be there. There's just something about the fight that has been very interesting, in a sense that I've got to see what this is. I think I want to be a part of this. In my office, with the exception of one woman who is local, she's from Standing Rock, she lives in Mandan, we are all far from home, without our, far from our families and our loved ones. I'm a volunteer, everybody else is salaried, they're not earning a lot of money. It's not a job that they took because they couldn't find anything else. We all do that because we felt drawn. And I think that's to me, that's really one of the interesting things about Standing Rock. It's not by accident that most of us have found ourselves there.
There are no accidents in life.
Yeah, that's another way of putting it.
Thank you, Marie.
It's my pleasure. I take a lot of... it's funny, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I'm a strong believer in serendipity. You don't necessarily have to have big plans. Just follow your heart and let things happen. And I went there originally thinking, oh, I'm an environmental planner. Maybe I can help them, write an environmental impact statement or something. Well, I quickly learned that they didn't need environmental planners there at camp. And so I started cooking, serving food. We sometimes serve many hundreds of people a meal. And it was very rewarding. It was a great way to meet people. And it was just a real sense of purpose and kind of helping something much bigger than yourself. And then I gravitated from that, kind of being a support person to the media. And I'm not media myself, but I got to know a lot of the filmmakers and photographers firsthand. So when I started working at the Water Protectors Legal Collective, that came in really handy, because I'd be looking at videos of actions and people getting arrested, and I could see a lot of my photographer, filmmaker friends, and I could contact them and say, yo, I just saw you were, you were at such and such an event on such and such a date. Would you have any film you can share? So I was able to pull in a lot of film and video from people. Because I was at camp, because I was at many of the actions, because I had to go through the legal process myself, go through the trial, I really have come to have a pretty comprehensive view of what went on. And what I really enjoy is sharing it with people, whether it's people like you, whether it's with visiting attorneys who all they know is what they read in their memos and briefs and have no sense about the lay of the land or what went down in certain places. And it's really been an honor to share that information. It's been an honor for me to participate in this, and an honor that I can be of use and connect people with other people, connect people with the land and the events.
תודה.
תודה.